Unlocking secrets. Naomi Osaka's emotional words to Coco Gauff after their thrilling 2019 U.S. Open clash. The night air inside Arthur Ashe Stadium on August 31st, 2019, felt unusually heavy, thick with expectation, history, and the electricity that only tennis can summon when generations collide. Floodlights illuminated the blue hard court like a stage, and on that stage stood two figures whose careers, though separated by age and experience, were forever linked in that moment. Naomi Osaka, the reigning U.S. Open champion and world number one, and Coco Gauff, the 15-year-old prodigy whose fearless run had captured the imagination of the sporting world. What unfolded that night was more than a match. It was a passing of emotional truths, whispered lessons and unspoken promises, sealed not by the final scoreline, but by a few deeply emotional words Naomi Osaka shared with Coco Gauff after the battle was done. This is the story behind those words. The collision of two eras. Coco Gauff arrived at the 2019 U.S. Open like a spark racing through dry grass. Fresh from her Wimbledon breakthrough, where she stunned Venus Williams and announced herself to the world, Gauff played with joy, audacity, and maturity far beyond her years. Every swing of her forehand felt like a declaration. I belong here. Naomi Osaka, meanwhile, carried a different weight. Just a year earlier, she had lifted the U.S. Open trophy amid controversy and boos following her victory over Serena Williams. That moment, while historic, had left emotional scars. By 2019, Osaka was not just defending a title. She was defending her peace, her identity, and her place in a sport that often demanded strength without vulnerability. Their third-round clash was inevitable, almost cinematic. Youth versus experience. Momentum versus mastery. Admiration versus reality. The match that spoke louder than words. From the opening game, the contrast was stark. Gauff played freely, smiling between points, feeding off the crowd's energy. Osaka was composed, precise, and devastatingly efficient. She absorbed Coco's power, redirected it, and exposed gaps only experience could see. The scoreline, 6-3, 6-0, told one story. But tennis, like life, rarely fits neatly into numbers. Coco fought for every point. She sprinted, slid, and refused to disappear. Yet Osaka's calm dominance was unrelenting. With each game, it became clearer. This was a lesson match, not humiliation. And Coco understood that. The tears that changed everything. When the final point was played, Coco Gauff walked to the net with grace. She shook Osaka's hand, smiled bravely, and then the tears came. Not the tears of defeat alone, but the tears of realization. She had felt the gap, she had touched greatness, and learned how far the climb still was. As Gauff walked toward her chair, her shoulders trembled. Cameras zoomed in. The stadium hushed. This wasn't scripted. This was raw. And then Naomi Osaka did something unforgettable. She walked over. Naomi's emotional words, a moment of quiet power. Osaka didn't hesitate. She crossed the court, knelt slightly, and wrapped Coco in an embrace. It was spontaneous, instinctive, and deeply human. Then she spoke, quietly, away from microphones, away from headlines. Later, Coco would reveal fragments of what was said, and Naomi, in her own interviews, would hint at the emotion behind it. The essence of Naomi's message was simple, yet profound. Don't cry. You did amazing. This is just the beginning. But there was more beneath those words. Naomi told Coco that losing on the stage didn't define her, that moments like this were part of becoming great. She reminded her that pressure was proof of belief, not failure. And perhaps most importantly, she let Coco see that even champions feel overwhelmed, uncertain, and emotional. Naomi wasn't just comforting a teenager. She was speaking to her younger self. A mirror across time. For Naomi Osaka, watching Coco Gauff cry on the court was like looking into a mirror reflecting her own past. She remembered being young, gifted, and suddenly famous. She remembered the expectations, the noise, the loneliness of success. She remembered crying in locker rooms, questioning whether she was strong enough. In Coco, she saw a possibility, but also vulnerability. And in that moment, Naomi chose empathy over detachment. This wasn't weakness. This was leadership, the crowd that witnessed history. Arthur Ashe Stadium erupted, not in celebration of victory, but in recognition of something deeper. Fans stood, applause thundered, not because of the scoreline, but because they had just witnessed a rare exchange of sincerity in a sport often masked by stoicism. Two black women, two generations, one shared understanding. It was tennis at its most human. Coco Gauff's lesson that night. Later, Coco would speak about how much that moment meant to her. She admitted that she had felt overwhelmed, not by the loss, but by the realization of what greatness truly demanded. Osaka's words helped her process that feeling not as failure, but as fuel. Coco learned that night that champions are not defined by perfection, but by resilience. That tears don't disqualify strength. That setbacks are not stop signs. They are directions. And perhaps most importantly, she learned that the women ahead of her weren't gatekeepers. They were guides. Naomi Osaka's silent legacy. Naomi Osaka would go on to defend her U.S. Open title that year, cementing her place among the elite. But many would argue that her most powerful moment of the tournament wasn't a forehand winner or a lifted trophy. It was that quiet hug, those whispered words, that emotional bridge between past and future. In a sport evolving toward openness, mental health awareness, and authenticity, Osaka's gesture became symbolic. She showed that being a champion wasn't just about winning matches. It was about how you carry others forward, a seed planted for future. Years later, Coco Gauff would rise, Grand Slam titles, world-class victories, and a maturity shaped by moments like that night in New York. When she stands tall under pressure now, many fans trace her composure back to lessons learned early, lessons delivered not in lectures, but in kindness. Naomi Osaka may not remember every word she spoke that night, but Coco Gauff remembers how those words made her feel. Seen, validated, capable, beyond tennis. Why that moment matters. Sports history is filled with iconic matches, but fewer iconic moments of compassion. What happened after Osaka versus Gauff in 2019 transcended tennis. It challenged the idea that competition must erase empathy. It reminded the world that greatness doesn't require coldness. Sometimes greatness looks like a hug. Sometimes it sounds like a whisper saying, "You're going to be okay." Conclusion: the secret was never a secret. The secret behind Naomi Osaka's emotional words to Coco Gauff isn't hidden strategy or insider wisdom. It's humanity. It's the understanding that every champion was once a child standing on a big stage, trying not to cry. It's the courage to reach across the net and say, "I've been there." On that night in 2019, Naomi Osaka didn't just win a tennis match. She unlocked something far more powerful, a future built on empathy, strength, and shared dreams. And in doing so, she reminded the world why tennis, at its best, is not just a game, but a story of growth, connection, and hope. Tennis Sparkles, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, and share. Till next time.